All right, now this is Mike here, and this is one of our extra course lessons. And this is optional a little bit if you want to know my way of picking out a place to stay. Okay? Like I said, this is optional. Most people have kind of have a good idea on hotels and they're staying. And this is going to be obviously a little bit predicated on the amount of money you can spend. So obviously, if you have way more means than other people, typically you can stay in the nicer places. So all that sort of thing, which makes it easier for you because you could look at the top end of your budget. But it seems like the sky is the limit. So for those people, you probably need this list. Now, some people, you're not going to have that much money. You might even be staying in an RV or your car. I've done both, you know what I mean? Sometimes just staying over, just sleeping in a car. Is a good way to save money. All right, no judgment here. I'm going to cover kind of the basics of both. I'm also going to say a few things that might sound to some people a little bit predicated on certain type of folks. It's not that at all. I love all people, all different groups of people, all that sort of thing. I'm not racist or sexist or something like that anyway. So I want to kind of talk about my methodology on how I book places. Okay, so whenever I go out to some place I've never been to, how I go about looking where that place is, and some things around it. So this is kind of going to be my ability or my opinions on my ability to make me, maybe not you, a really good place to stay. Now, if you agree or you've always kind of wondered of well, how do you go about picking out a really good place to stay? Like I said, this is predicated a lot of times on your budget, because sometimes the same hotel in one place might be radically different price than the same brand of hotel in a different place. All that sort of thing. This is going to be in the same series as what I did with packing and where to eat and a few other of these road trip extra courses. So that's why we took away some of our other features that we've had on the courses, like above me here or above us on the page, the main topic of conversation, and that's why I call these the extras or the additional or something similar. So in this lesson we're going to be talking about how I personally go out to find a good place to stay for me. This will depend on different kinds of people, you know what I mean? So this is why we talked about in the very beginning having your sheet music, because some people, they're like, I can't stay in a place that's over $100 a night. I'm just not going to do it. And that's fine. So sometimes it's just a budgetary thing. Sometimes it's just because of they can't let themselves do something. All right, and that's perfectly fine if you know who you are. So if you're always wondered how I do it, let's talk. I first go to somewhere. Like, for example, that people say, well, I don't want to go into anywhere touristy. Let's face it, the reason it's touristy is because people want to go there. It's not, an either or thing. It's just the city planners decided that they were going to be a tourism type based place. And now there's a lot of touristy places to visit. Some people or some towns and cities, they do not want to be touristy based. And they decided to go more with industry and other things besides attracting people. Okay, so each have their place, all right? And sometimes one might have a little bit of each. So that's perfectly normal too. So if you're going to a place that's touristy, I find that place usually has a little bit more, street crime, all right, than other places. And it just goes with the territory. There's a lot of people come here to that particular place so that they can spend money doing a particular thing. So it's either beaches or mountains or, I don't know, something like a fun house type scene, or we'll say an amusement park close by, or a big old huge round track for NASCAR, or a drag strip, or maybe it's a part of town that has a baseball or football stadium in it, or a downtown area known for its honky tonks like Nashville, and you're looking around for a place to stay. So I'm going to look around to find a place where I don't have to drive as far. Okay? I want to stay what we would call on site as much as I can. That also means that I want to have the ability to kind of walk out my room and do something kind of fun. So if I'm on a fun vacation, because sometimes I don't do this, sometimes I'll get a place like Fairfield Glade and above Crossville where it's primarily retirees. It's quiet. I can sit out back on my patio and just drink coffee and just listen to the birds. And I can look around and everybody else is kind of lifting their little coffee mug up. And we don't have to say nothing to each other. We're just all enjoying the resort. And that has its place too. So I'm going to say before we even start off for what kind of place is what your intentionality wants to be. So I would say look at the parts of the hotel or where it's at first. So I would go to wherever I'm staying and I would put in Google, do a Google search. And then I would find where places to stay is. So I would look around for where's rentable. Everybody wants their place to get rented, so Google is a good one to go with. And it'll find you a multitude of different things. Now, since I usually stay in cities, of course, if you go to a town, this is where Airbnb could be a help. Or something like Yelp or a Reddit forum, wherever you look up. Now, keep in mind, the more you stray out with people's opinions, doesn't necessarily mean those opinions are right. So if you get on a Reddit forum and it says that, or any of these places, and it shows some places that, or they talk about places that they think they're going to go, most likely that person is probably getting a commission from the people or from the places they're trying to rent out. A lot of times you'll find the owner of the home at Airbnb being a little bit enthusiastic about how great their place is. And it's because they want visitors, if you see what I'm saying. We're on Google, they don't really care. You can tell what's sponsored and not sponsored. But on the Google map, you can just kind of zoom in, if you will, until where you can see everything, the layout of the land, and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and find some places that are potential, and I'm going to start looking around at them. Now, of course, once I do select a place, I'm going to look at, for one, availability and price, all that sort of thing too. But I'm going to look around for what it's next to. Because if I find that right next door is a railroad track, I know for a fact what's going to happen. About 3 a.m., I'm going to hear this sound. And that sound isn't going to go by until 3:37 a.m. And there's usually a road it has to cross, so by law it has to signal there's a train coming, and it's going to happen. I'm going to be just looking at the ceiling going, oh my goodness. Or if it might be next door to this club, or it might be next, you know what I mean? And I don't want to hear rave music, beside me. So I'm going to look around at what it is around. So I'm going to try to make that kind of judgment call, and see what it also goes in. For 2, I'm going to look at what parking situation it has. If it's like on the street parking, I'm like, no, thank you. Unless it's just the only thing available. But I want a place where I can park securely, preferably where I can see my car from my room. So sometimes even while I check in, I'll go upstairs to my room. I'll see where I can find a place. You know what I mean? I'll be looking out the window or something, get little curtains. I'm looking around to see if I can see my car from my room. And then I'll just go back downstairs. We'll move it and I'll park it. You know what I mean? And I'm usually in for the night. I don't usually like to get out. So we'll either order some food or we'll walk to a place nearby. So that's how I'm kind of thinking things ideologically. How do I find a place that fits those criteria so that I don't have to move my car and then later on the night can't even find a place to park it? And of course, you know what happens. Some people park just to leave their car and they're not even staying at the hotel. And I know everybody says, well, they have to leave your driver's license or your car identifier. But I get that, but it's not usually something they leave overnight. They're going to be there for like a little bit, then anyway. So sometimes they park things, and it just doesn't work out so that everybody gets a parking spot. So I try to do that. I try to find a place I can park and I can see it from my room. So that's something I also do. Also, I never book a place that is part of like a motel, okay? Like typically a motel hotel things. Hotels usually have inside corridors or an inn or something like that. A lot of places that have an outside facing door. Now, even if it's 3, 5, 10 stories tall, it can still have outside doors, okay? And sometimes even our best resorts still have an outside key situation, because you got to get in your room somehow, and sometimes for these places, I'm not saying that it's always wrong, but usually if it's not a resort where there's plenty of security and cameras up everywhere, because like I said, keep in mind, in a resort situation, like if you go to Panama City Beach and you look at this big old tall room thing and you're like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. A lot of times you can't even get on the elevator unless you have a key. So I don't worry about it as much there. But if I'm in a hotel, especially if I'm on the ground floor of the hotel, and there's the ability to get in the room from the outside, I don't typically like to book those. So there's a threshold with me personally. After a certain level, this is your Motel 6, you know what I mean? You're kind of your more budget friendly hotel chains, okay? Now I know I get it one time they all had these, and that was just what you got, right? But in today's time, we've got a lot of places that are part of hotel chains that are usually a little step up. This is starting to go 2, 3, maybe even 4 star. This is where you're going to get the better hotel, okay? Also like to get a hotel with a pool, and preferably a pool with a hot tub or something like that, because my kiddo and my wife are water babies. Now, if it was up to me, I don't touch either one of them. I don't even get in. Like, the only way I'll get in is if my daughter's drowning, but if I hop in, she'll probably have to save me after that. Very few times do I ever get inside the pool or hot tub. But they have a really good time with it. So one of the perks of traveling with me is we get a hotel with these amenities. So look through the amenities that they have. Sometimes a gym. My wife likes to walk and work out a little bit. I can't. I lift my spoon to my face. That's about all I do. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to athletics. So sometimes getting an amenity like a gym or some kind of breakfast in the morning, if they've got a place where you can go and get a decent breakfast inside the hotel, have a coffee station. They seem to keep it stocked. It usually begins at like 6 a.m. That's usually when I'm up and going. And so we'll usually look for something like that. Keep in mind that if you save a lot of money on the hotel room and then go somewhere like expensive for breakfast, then you basically paid the same money. I get a free breakfast, even though I have to pay, say, $150 to $200 a night versus $100, and then going to a Bob Evans or a Hardee's or something and spending $30 or more. I didn't really accomplish much. You see what I'm saying? I didn't really help it. So keep in mind when you are looking at budgeting, if they do come with a free breakfast or something like that, that would be a pretty good size help. Also, we've stayed in some jury inns up in the north part, usually Paducah and on up, where they give you a free breakfast and a free dinner. So, that was hard to pass up, and it was actually good. You know what I mean? Now, was it some kind of really fancy, poached egg? No, you're not going to get that, but you're going to get all the, stuff you'd want to eat on this buffet. So if it comes with a buffet, that helps in budgeting and all that stuff too. And while you're out on the road, who cares, right? I mean, you got to eat something. Might as well make it a deal. So that's what I'm trying to say, is I try to go with a little bit better rooms, because they offer me more, if it makes any sense. I hope it does. So that's that's kind of how I go with the ideation of it. Obviously, like I mentioned a while ago, if there's whatever's around it, or it happens to be on the way to where I'm already going to go, that's also a big help. And the parking security is something that I kind of go with. Now, the difference between, say, 2 and 3 star is very negligible. The difference between 3 and 4 star is actually quite a bit. So I find that once you get 4 and 5, well, I guess, let's face it, none of us are probably staying in 5 star, but those are almost. I just don't see that there's an extra amount of difference in price a lot of times to really get those style rooms. Now there are some exceptions. I absolutely adore the Gaylord Opryland Hotel, but you're spending about $300 a night for a room. So this is where I'm going to say, if there's somewhere like that you're going to stay and there's like 4 of you, get a double bed situation. A lot of times you can get a double king, and then just all of you stay in that one room, because if all of you chip in, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? So if you can tolerate each other to be in the same van or truck or whatever for a long time, then you could probably stay in the same room. So how you go about with your road trip, how do you get rooms that doesn't cost everybody a bunch of money? Because I don't think, well, for one, let's face it, most of the time your single king rooms or your suites are the things that stay booked the most. Your double bed situations are typically not booked as much. Now this also might vary depending on, who's all going with you and all that sort of thing too. Now, if places that are big for business, they're trying to get as cheap as possible, and they're probably going to go with somebody in their company. So unless you're doing a boy-girl thing where they want to avoid the stigma of having unmarried people of the same company going and staying in the one room, they'll usually get something different. But if there's 2 or 3 guys going, they'll just be like, look, can we just all room together? We're just going for this conference or this. That's a little different situation. But if you're with people that you already kind of like, one of the biggest savings you can do is try not to get every single one person their own room. Now, of course, if you got some people that make a lot more money than other people, they're like, look, I'm just going to get my own. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Now, keep in mind, this needs to be discussed really early in your conversation, because you need to know whenever you do book, you could book the next room next to them. Say, for example, you got a combination of different ladies, and they don't want to sleep 2 girls to a bed, but they want maybe 2 of them that are better friends than the other 2 to have their own separate rooms. That means a bed and a bed, a person and a person, right? The next room is a bed and a bed, and a person and a person. 1 person to a bed, 2 people to 1 room. But if you can get your rooms next door to each other, then it's going to make it a lot easier for you to go out as a group. You see what I'm saying? So there's no need of you being on the 2nd floor and they're at the 17th floor, and you know what I mean? If you could book your rooms and in time, and you can explain in the little notes section on a lot of our booking type sites, you would like your parties to be next door to each other, and you give them months in advance, they'll probably make sure that happens, okay? Because they want to make a happy customer. So whatever you guys combined, like I always say in my videos, you know this, if there's a person here and here and here, there's me, so I'm the leader of the pack, right? And I'm telling my friends, here's the situation, we're going to be in this place at this time. What do you guys believe as far as rooms? Or is there like a hotel chain? All that stuff. I just mentioned the Gaylord Opryland Hotel, but there's only one of those, and it's in Nashville. When we're in Huntsville, I love the Westin Hotel. Why? Because it's right on Bridge Street. I have to park my car and then just go up to my room, and whenever I want to play and do all kinds of stuff, I just get out and walk down Bridge Street, because Bridge Street is awesome in Huntsville. And anyway, if I want to go to the Space Center, I can see one of the rockets from Bridge Street. You know what I mean? So it's just get off on the, 565 or something, and head over. And there's actually a way you can get to it that you don't even have to cross So it's real easy driving if you want to go to the Space and Rocket Center, because, like I said, it's a neat place. So how I go about getting those places, obviously we're not going to stay a whole long time because it's a lot of money per night. But because of its convenience, it's worth it to me. Also, you can start budgeting a year in advance. Let's talk about that. Well, if you save a little bit of money each month for months, you can usually afford a pretty good, decent road trip. Also, and some people in your group, they might just laugh at $1,200. You know what I mean? Well, that's a couple nights stay, and they'd be like, I'll get the rooms because I want my own room, but I'll get you guys one, the room for the three of you. Well, then just take it, right? Let them, have it if budgetary concerns are something that's going to be an issue during the trip. So that's how I go about, anyway, telling other people how to look for hotels. Like I mentioned, be sure to look at the area that you're going to be in, that's a good place to stay. Okay, there'll be all kinds of forums, there'll be all kinds of people in the comment sections saying how good it is. Now, of course, there's always somebody who has a 5-star, best place ever. I'll always go here forever. The next one is probably something like a comment that says something like, had bed bugs, got AIDS, and then died. My sister is leaving this. That person's probably works for the hotel across the street. So don't believe everything you hear when it comes to some of these comments and some of these forums and some of these message board type stuff, on social media, all that sort of thing. Now, keep in mind, if you go to an AI search, let's talk about that real quick. Because people are more using these generative search engines, ChatGPT, Gemini, stuff like that. This is where it's going to come in, where they're going to search maybe a little bit differently. So say something like best hotel in Nashville for quiet people, or something like that, retired people with young kids, stuff like that. And sometimes, because it has a lot different crawl budget, where it can find things a little bit deeper based on your intentionality. Because everybody remembers back in the day on just typical Google, you could be like Hotel Nashville send, and it just pulls up, okay, fine. Hotel Nashville, here's a list, sort in from lowest to greatest, and you can say, okay, you can stay at the, whatever inn for $59, and it's just like, nope. There's like 1,759 one-star reviews, let's pass this one. Let's get up here about $150 a night, and we'll go from there. Of course, you can spend $1,000 a night, I'm sure, somewhere. But anyway, you'll pick out a place based on price, and typically that price doesn't really tell you much unless you start looking around for extras. So I typically go through the location I kind of want to be in, and then just find something within the price, and then start looking at more stuff. Now, if I do have my daughter with me, I want to look at their pool. Is it a heated pool? You know what I mean? Because if she knows there's a pool and she doesn't get in it, she's going to be mad. So I want to cut that off and say, okay, is it thermally controlled so that in the middle of the winter it's still open a lot of times, but the water will be like 42 degrees or something. It's just, I don't know if it's that cold, but it'll be so cold it's like ice water. And there's the pool. It's sitting there just being a pool, but it's so cold you can't swim in it. So make sure, even if it does have a pool, that it's a heated pool or some kind of thermically controlled pool. Also keep in mind of how safe it is. Usually they'll start at 3 foot and go to either 5 or 6 foot. It's very rare do you find an indoor pool with a diving board and all that stuff. It'll usually say things like, do not jump. There's usually never a lifeguard, all that sort of thing. So find out if there's ways of getting hurt. Keep in mind this will be kids specific. If you got a 12-year-old, they're probably okay just to go down and swim and come back to the room. But I always try to find a way that if my wife and I always go with my kiddo to swim. My wife usually always gets in the water. So it's never a problem. I'm just there to make sure I get the towels, to make sure everything we brought down to the pool goes back up to the room. That's my job. is to make sure I get towels, and if I need more towels, I'll go find somebody, or I'll find where they keep them, all that sort of thing. So sometimes by going into some of these photos and such like that, you can find a hotel where somebody's taken a lot more photos than other people, and that's going to tell them, it's kind of going to clue them into what kind of situation you're walking into. So if that makes any sense, I hope it does. So that's kind of how I go about it. Now, if I'm getting a resort, I want a certain type of resort. I'm going to be spending obviously more money on that resort. And a lot of times the resorts already have all this stuff figured out. Okay, so I'm going to look for places I can eat while I'm there. A lot of times they'll have their own little restaurants. You usually get very little food for a whole lot of money. It's all about convenience. So I'm going to look through the menu of each place, but that's a whole different lesson. But pretty much where I'm going to stay, also, it could have where I get that food brought to me. So does it have something like a service of some sort that runs me food? And there have been times where I've stayed at places where it was just neat to order room service and to just pay the money. You know what I mean? Sometimes after a long day of driving, going and saying, let's drive down the road and get something to eat. And it's like, will somebody walk me up some driving food? And that's why I'll look around, because I don't like to drive just continuously a long distance and have a long day out on the road and then get back out on the road, this time during the night usually, to go find something to eat because I checked into my hotel. Usually once I sit down, I'm done. That's all I'm going to do. So if I sit there for a little bit and I decide to get back up and let's go get something to eat, then it needs to be within walking distance, because I don't want to mess with the car. I just don't. You know what I mean? Now, in a situation where the four of you might not be nothing like me, and you might be like, look, dude, in that funny looking hat and that shirt, I'm going to get crunk. I'm going to get down here and I'm going to do some coyote ugly stuff, and I'm going to dance and we're going to do jello shots. Then you definitely want somewhere you can walk, because driving while intoxicated or under the influence of whatever you brought or got with you, you need a place where you can go and don't have to worry about crazy stuff. So you need a better hotel than normal. And I know some people think, well, I'm not going to go home till 3 a.m. Well, then you need to look at what time that room checks out. Because if they got a 10 a.m. checkout time, you're going to be sad. But if they got an extended checkout time, because you know you're a night owl, then that might be more appealing to check out at like 1 or 2 p.m. You know what I'm saying? So that might be something to think about in the future. If you're the kind of person that wants to get up and stay up all night, that you look at what time the check-in and check-out of a room is. Usually most of the time it's about 4 or 5 for check-in. And I usually like to get there pretty quick. I don't like to start checking in at like 7:52, because then I'm going to get everything in, and I got to go get something to eat, because I'm usually hungry by then. And also, it's usually when everybody starts checking in. So there's usually a line, or if you do the app thing, that's another thing that we should talk about. Depending on what hotel chain you are booking, they might have an app where you don't have to mess with anybody at the concierge. You can just go straight upstairs. Your phone connects to the device lets you in. Only if there's a problem do you have to ring anybody. And of course, there's always somebody around. So they can assist you by looking you up in the computer. So this is going to be a pretty good advantage if you do happen to check in late, and you don't have to wait on people that are trying to check in, so that you can go straight to your room. So this might be appealing to you. So you might have to look for a chain that happens to have an app version to where you can go that route. So that's a lot of it. It's just location, my driving direction. You don't want to go backtrack down the road, you know what I mean, a lot. I want to be able to stay pretty moderately according to my course. It just makes me feel better. And of course, if it has a security gate, you know what I mean, I bring up all the time, if you want to go see Graceland, go ahead and stay next door, okay? Graceland happens to be in a part of Memphis that is kind of known for being crime ridden. It's the number one place in the country now as far as being, as far as having crime, even deadly shooting type crime. But if you stay next door, there's a gate up, there's people that take care of you. It's a really nice place. It holds a whole lot of people. And you can generally get, of course, you just have to walk next door and you're at Graceland. And of course, you can walk, they have a little thing across the road where you can see the planes and all that sort of thing. But when you get out there on the road and start trying to mess with where to park and all that sort of thing, it becomes a real problem really fast if you're not careful. So also keep that in mind. A lot of places downtown, you can see it from Google Maps. Yes, that's true, but you don't know what it's going to look like after dark. You know what I'm saying? So just depending on where you're at will be kind of looked at different, I guess, if that makes any sense. There are some places, if you look up on, like, say, Nashville or Knoxville or Memphis or Chattanooga, any of these bigger towns and cities, where everybody says there's downtown traffic, or not only traffic, but downtown crime. There'll be downtown a lot of things. So when you look up something on Google, you could probably look up crime downtown city name, crime downtown Nashville. There'll be something that comes up. But that's also where the most plainclothes policemen, it's where they have a very heavy police presence, and some of the nicest hotels. And they want to make sure people keep coming back. So even though there's seems to be, on percentages, a high amount of crime, per person, it's actually quite low. Way lower than other parts of the same city. Just like whenever I'm in New Orleans, I stay in the French Quarter every single time. Because as soon as you get away from the French Quarter, you're out amongst everybody else. There's nobody around sometimes. So as long as there's people, like I said, plainclothes policemen, some people that that's their job, is to keep it safe, will usually be around, and they kind of know who's who and all that sort of thing. Now, if you're mucking about and it's 3 a.m., you're probably not going to fare very well if you're hanging out at that time of night in the French Quarter. And that's usually where you find there's quite a bit of crime there. And it's just because you've went out at a time that wasn't conducive to most of the security professionals. So if you are staying at a place, try to be responsible. Keep in mind you're on a road trip. Try to come in and out of your hotel at a responsible time. Most places are going to make you check out at like either 10 or 11 anyway. And that's about the time you need to get on. You got other places to go. Come on, get out of there. So be able to wake up early, get some breakfast, take a shower, all that sort of thing, and then head on out your way, which is another, I guess, maybe, I don't know. Well, I've already started now. Another thing I do, and this is going to sound weird, I need to find out how to run the shower. You know how, I think we've all been there, where there's a knob and the knob within another knob, and it's just like, okay, now okay, this way goes hot, and this way goes cold. How do I start the shower if it don't have the little thing you pull on the nozzle? And I'm looking around at it going, I have no idea. Then somebody figures out you pull the little thing out. The whole knob comes. It's like, oh, well, what would have been better to me to know this. Now I've stayed in so many places and seen so many different things. But I have had, this is going to sound terrible, but I have literally had to call downstairs and ask, how do you work the shower? And it's just like, excuse me? It's like, I don't know how to turn the shower on. There's no button, or there's no thing that I'm used to. And then somebody has to come up there, and it's like, well, you see the whole thing slides out. And there's no indication. There's nothing on the faucet. And, so there it is. I mean, sometimes I like to see photos of the faucet so I get to know, And sometimes they'll have this, like, rain thing. It's just this big diameter, and it's more vertical, so it makes stuff go in your eye. So I need to know if I can hang my towel up beside me so I can wipe my big old forehead off. I mean, it's just, I need to know how I can interface with everything in the room. So, all that sort of thing. Now, keep in mind, when you are looking for a place that's in there. For example, if you want to watch the sun go down, because the sun goes to come up on the other side of the room, and you're sensitive to the sun coming in really early in the morning. Say for all night you were doing Jello shots and you don't want the sun to wake you up first thing, then you need to ask for the west side of the building whenever you check in. Go ahead and put it on there. No one needs to be, all red-eyed, only to forget to close the curtains. And at 5:52 a.m., the sun is beaming in your window, and you're over there going, I don't want to get up, but the sun is so bright. You have to do the covers over your head stuff, and no one wants to do that. So sometimes to help you, you can get and ask for the other side. Now, for me, I would rather have the sun coming up, because I'll be up. By the time the sun comes up, I'll hear the little birds or whatever, and I will be like, I had a pretty good night's sleep. I went to bed early, at like 9 p.m. And by 6 a.m., the sun coming up is not going to bother me. It's just going to remind me, I want coffee, I want breakfast, and I'm just going to be singing my little song, getting my shower. By 7 o'clock, the other two is going to be asleep. I'm going to be downstairs like I don't know. I'll just be stealthily moving through like a ninja in the buffet, grabbing a little bit of bacon, some sausage, some of those little potato things. Yeah, I'll take a little bit of that, and I'll just sit over there and eat. And then after I'm done, I'll take a plate or two up, because once I eat all I can, I'll take some up to my family members and see if they want to eat on that. Now, if they're like, I want a whole plate for myself, I'll be like, come on, get a shower. We'll go downstairs. You know what I mean? But they usually don't like the breakfast crowd, because at 6 a.m. there's hardly anybody. But by like 8 or 9 a.m. every single table is full of people. So usually if I take them a plate up, which is another thing you need to ask about in your hotel, if they allow food in their rooms, all that sort of thing. Usually, even if they don't, they'll just shrug their shoulders and say, well, they paid for a good, decent night. And he looks old enough not to drop it all over the floor. Now, if you've got orange juice and stuff all in your arms, it's just, you probably shouldn't do that. But I'll usually grab something that I can take with me. And we'll go up with a little small plate of things. And while they're showering, I'm pre-packing. I'm making this to make sure I don't forget stuff. I'll be looking around under the bed, make sure my kiddo didn't kick something underneath there. And then I'll be looking around the room to make sure we got everything. So whenever they get their showers, all that sort of thing, and they're good to go, they're ready to leave, then we can pretty much shut the door. I'll usually keep the key until we absolutely have to go. And that's because, I hate to say it, but most of us, after we eat something, we have to pee and poop. Yeah, that's just part of being a person, and I'll be right there as regular as clockwork. And I'll have to go back to the room where I can just sit there in peace, hang out. My wife can be drinking her second or third cup of coffee, and my kiddos playing on her iPad, because while they were eating or something like that, I could be running things out to the car. And then I can be making observations whenever I get to the car, make sure I didn't run over something and I got a flat tire. The car's battery, let the door go up and down. Obviously, if I hit the button and nothing's happening, then there could be a problem with the battery. So I'm going to make some really good basic assumptions about the vehicle when I first arrive to the vehicle after we've checked out. See what I'm saying? So I want to make sure that everything's in working order and there's nothing weird on it. Somebody didn't decide to autograph it with Joni was here, or something like that with a key in the side of it. Or you have a mistaken identity, or somebody tells you to go, whatever yourself, you know what I'm saying. And it's because you have a car that is identical to another person's car. They did not know it was you, they thought it was them. So I need to know before I even make any move that it wasn't me, security camera tapes or something. Because I like to also park where I know the security cameras are looking in case something does happen. I can call the police, and while my other two's in there just hanging out, I could be over here working the thing so that by the time it's all settled and done, there's nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? I got my insurance and stuff involved. We can just get on with our trip. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes where you stay has a lot to say or do about something. Obviously, if I did run over something and I needed to move the vehicle to where they have like truck parking or something, I can go do that, possibly. And I can get the jack up in there and I can start changing the tire. It's the little small cheap places that have things really close to each other. You know, the parking spaces, and sometimes that don't go well. So let's talk a little bit about parking garages. For one, make sure you're supposed to be there. They usually have a gate key up where you have to scan to make sure you're a person that's supposed to be in here with your key card or your phone app. Remember I mentioned that too. If you do go in, make sure you don't park double spaced. There's usually always security, and there's nothing more frustrating to find a parking spot and some doofus decided he didn't want anybody parking around him and pulls in the middle of two parking spots. Don't do that. For one, they're probably going to write you a ticket or they're going to get involved. They're going to say, you know, whoever this is, we need everybody to have a place to park, and you did this. So it's never going to be good, even if you get away with it. All right, so let's talk about that. So security in a parking garage, keep in mind sometimes this is the bed and bathroom of people that don't have a home. So you're going to have to be watchful. This is where the flashlight, and if you're going to be there at night, typically nothing happens in the daytime, so you'll be okay. Now, if you go out really early in the morning or really late at night, obviously you're going to be there during dark. The security probably hasn't made its patrol around as much, so you might find somebody sleeping on your car. Who knows? Even if it's a nice place, this happens. Or somebody decided to use the bathroom on the hood of your car. I don't know. I've heard of this happen. Never happened to me. So keep in mind that whenever you do go and you look at this hotel and you are able to see the parking garage, make sure they have a elevator to take you up, because a lot of times they'll just have stairs, okay, down to them. And it's because you don't have to fix stairs where the elevator might go out. So sometimes they'll always have both. So be sure that you can find those places. Usually the Google Maps or something like that, other people have shown, they've taken a picture of it and uploaded it so that they can, you just look under Google Images of that particular hotel. That's what you would enter in the search criteria. So whenever you look up that particular hotel, hopefully somebody's taken a picture of that and showed you. So that's how I go about looking at a place to stay. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, because this is going on really long, typically, let's just recap a little bit. The cheaper hotels, unless you just need the budget, okay? Obviously, if you had a really cheap night and you packed 4 people in there, it might only cost you like $10 or $20 a person to stay in there. That's just above staying in your van, right? Or sleeping in your van. I typically don't advise those because also they have very little security. Somebody can just, I don't know, tie a thing around your doorknob and just pull it off with a car and get in. There's nothing you can do about it. You're obviously not going to do that on the second floor of a 2 or 3 star hotel because they're on the inside, what's called a corridor. Those have a lot better amenities. They have a lot better everything. So if you can, spring for the better room. You're on a vacation, road trip, so act like it, I guess, or spend like it, all that sort of thing. So once you get the budgetary concerns right, make sure locationally it's on your way. You don't have to backtrack a lot just to get to where you need to be. And also, if they got some places around you where you just have to walk, usually you'll see a restaurant right next door to the hotel. It's good enough for road food. Okay, and usually down from one of those places, either up or down or side street, there's usually a good restaurant if you want to go that route. And the rest of it's just security. Try to make sure that no one gets your stuff, and then everything you brought goes back home or back in the car with you and as you head out. But anyway, just try not to overthink it, but you do need to kind of put in a little bit of legwork on how to find a really good place to stay. And I feel like in this particular lesson, I've done just that. So anyway, we're going to make it on to the next lesson after you get through with this one. Be sure to read up or down below this particular video and go on to the next lesson. All right, we'll see you there.